Just this past week, the Connecticut Sun had an opportunity to play at the TD Garden in Boston. And man, what an incredible game it was. First of all, the atmosphere was bananas. 19,000 plus fans were in the building. It was the first to ever happen in that building. No WNBA team had ever played in in TD Garden, and there was nothing from the league. Like, there was no additional promotion. The game wasn't nationally televised. It just feels like, and granted, this was the third highest attending game this season and the highest attended game in franchise history for the Connecticut Sun. So it just feels like, once again, the WNBA just can't really seem to get out of their own way as it relates to exposing this game to a larger audience. Just, Sharí, what are some of your thoughts on that?
I just don't get it. Like, there's enough resistance outside of the league itself to account for shorting the league or not giving it the level of exposure it deserves, not, from a revenue standpoint, putting it in a position to be as profitable as it not only should be, but again, as it deserves to be. So I'm just unclear at this point. That's my word. I have 5 million jobs. So my manager at one of my jobs, she said, don't say confused, say unclear. So I'm very unclear as to even why we are in a position where we have to have this conversation. And I think we've all given the commissioner of the WNBA the side eye more than once, especially this particular season. And I'm not even certain, aside from her resignation or firing, what the solution is. I'm just being honest. It's just not logical. And you can't even say, oh, the pieces weren't in place. Oh, people didn't know. No, these things are happening. And there's a lot of information that's already been given about what's going on. Even the situation with Terrika Foster-Brasby was not properly managed. It wasn't dealt with properly. So now the league is on notice about something that could have been dealt with quite some time ago for whatever reason. Again, not sure. Maybe she wasn't taken seriously. I don't know. I'm not understanding why sold out games are not nationally broadcast. That is unacceptable, especially from what I understand. Those ticket sales are already being taken care of in plenty of advance time for you to make sure that happened. So as much as we could try to find someone else to blame, because that's the easiest route, we actually can't even drive down that street, because it simply is the league itself cannibalizing on itself. It's very frustrating to see, especially as we're now in this era where women's basketball as a whole is blossoming. You talk about the college game, even high school game, college and all the way through. Please don't cut your nose to spite your face at this point in time, WNBA. Please, because there's going to be no one to blame when this is over. I promise you. When we look back at some of these instances of lacked growth because of just very blatant errors and mismanagement, there'll be no one to blame. No one to blame but leadership in the league itself. So it's disappointing, but I'm glad that we are in a position, even with our platform, to call these things out. And I know other platforms are doing the same thing, because you got to put pressure on the powers that be. And I think at this point in time, the WNBA has been in a position, their commissioner has been in a position to be the victim, and in many respects has been the victim. But at this point in time, you're actually a victor who's victimizing yourself. So I say, let's keep putting the pressure on leadership, C-suite, whatever we have to do, and call it out. And hopefully at some point some changes will be made so that the league can continue to grow, because we're at too pivotal of a point, to not ensure that happens. Just my take.
Very well said. And to that point, it isn't just the league, but it's also the networks that have rights to these games, because some of them, proclaim, oh yeah, we're doing so much for the women's game. And then you see moments like this where, oh, we didn't want the game. Right. There was an article that came out said, ESPN and NBA TV passed up on it. And I don't know if that's true. It may be, but they could have worked together to make something happen. The other thing that is awful is Maya Moore had her jersey retirement ceremony.
Man.
This Saturday. Who did they play against? The Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's idol growing up was Maya Moore. The game was on NBA TV. The retirement ceremony was on League Pass.
Unacceptable.
Fucking League Pass. You telling me she deserves that type of coverage? Absolutely not.
Nope.
There could have been a way to make it happen. Whether the Lynx decided to make, or whether the Lynx maybe pushed it back or move it ahead, right? Playing against the Aces and have it there when that game was on ESPN, or something else on one of ESPN's platforms, or maybe another network. Maya Moore is one of the greatest players in basketball history, let alone women's basketball history.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's the GOAT. Sorry.
Right. The woman went to 6 finals in 8 seasons. 6 finals in 8 seasons, won 4. Part of one of the greatest dynasties in WNBA history, and it was on League Pass. That right there, Terrika, lets me know that the league, in a lot of ways, is still not serious about their growth for the women's game. I'm sorry, I don't care if football was on. It wasn't the gauntlet of football. We were in week 0, for crying out loud. And you can't give her a national platform like we saw with Sue Bird, and Sue Bird deserved that, right? Let's be clear.
Yep. I think this is the same argument that we had last year when it came to Sue Bird and Sylvia Fowles' retirement, that we were wondering why was one heavily promoted and the other was not. The same reason why I felt a way about our Boston Garden game with Connecticut and LA not being nationally televised. Now, let's be clear. I am one of those people who did not want the game on ESPN. Absolutely did not. Because let's be honest. If it was an ESPN game, I would not have been able to call it. ESPN has their own broadcast team, their own sideline reporters, their own everything. When they have a game, it is their own staff. And I felt like that game was a game in which it required those of us who are part of the Connecticut broadcast team, those of us who have been with the team the entire season, who understood the gravity of the moment, to have that moment. So I didn't want ESPN's team to be broadcasting that. I wanted to work that game. So there's that. But that still meant Amazon Prime was an option. NBA TV was an option. CBS Sports Network was an option. This game had been advertised since last summer. It was officially put on the schedule in December. Tickets went on sale in February, and this game sold out, and the press release went out in July. So there was plenty of time. They flex all the time. They switch games all the time. And there was a game on NBA TV that night. It was Dallas in New York. No shade to either. But I'm also saying, between the gravity of the moment of what was happening in the Garden versus Dallas and New York, where you probably knew New York was going to win, there could have been an option to switch the games. And it makes no sense to me that, again, the WNBA continues to get in its own way. And it didn't matter, right? Because 19,000 fans still showed up. People still tuned in to watch. People still found a way. Yeah, it was on Twitter, but for real, like, being on Twitter is not the same as being on linear TV. So there's that, whatever. But at the end of the day, the WNBA as a league has continually found ways to shoot themselves in the foot. They take a few steps forward and then they find ways to take a few steps back. And it's disappointing because as much as we love this league, as much as we love the players in this league, we see the value in this league. I do tons of work with the WNBA. Right. I host the WNBA Space every Monday. So it's not to say that they're always getting it wrong. They aren't. But the moments and the marks that they missed are just sometimes more than they just bite off more than they can chew sometimes with the marks that they miss. And it's mind-boggling, like how we all get it and y'all still don't for whatever reason. But all I can do is just hope you figure it out and get it right the next time. Right? It just ain't no guarantee that there's always going to be a next time. Like, it ain't no guarantee that there's going to be another, there's never going to be another Maya Moore retirement.
Nope, never.
So, that's a moment that's just missed. What makes you think the people would not want to see that, given how much Maya Moore has meant to this game? That's crazy. We have never seen a women's basketball game played in TD Garden. You didn't know what the LA Sparks' record would look like. You didn't know what Connecticut's record would look like, for that matter, before this game started. But in December, when it was originally put on the schedule, you didn't know that. So how you using record as a reason that didn't nobody want it?
Come on now.
Ain't nobody know what the record was going to be in December. Like, that's nuts, right? So they just continue to get in their own way, and all we can do is hope and pray that they figure it out, and figure it out sooner rather than later.